I'm Lynne Boyer, and you're listening to Community Catalysts, a podcast that supports each other through shared experience. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Community Catalyst. My name is Lynne Boyer. I'm the Executive Director of Community Impact here at the YMCA of Greater Nashua and your host. And I'm so pleased to introduce my guest for today. Paige, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
Great. Thank you, Lynn. My name is Paige Beauchemin. I'm a registered nurse and perinatal mental health certified. I am right here in Nashua. I'm in Ward 4, which is kind of by Amherst Street School. And I'll let you go from there.
Great, thank you. And Paige, I know that you are a frequent Y flyer. So tell us a little bit about your Y impact, the impact the Y has had on you and your family, and your story of how you discovered the Y.
I feel like I could do a whole hour on this. So I grew up more in the Manchester Concord area, and I moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for 16 years. It's where I met my husband, had my first two children. And when we wanted to move back, my whole family had migrated south. So my dad's in Hudson, my brother's in Tingsboro. So it was like, okay, Nashua's the place, but I didn't really have a lot of roots here. I was 7 months pregnant with my third and just didn't have a lot of connection. And the YMCA was actually the first community connection that we made when we moved here. And even though it was slow meeting people, we still felt like we were in the community. And I do really think that it got us through those first few years because it was 2018, the very end of that. And so soon after that was COVID. And so it really did anchor us to feel like we had a place here. At this point, we pretty much we're at the Y like 3 or 4 times a week. We do all our classes. The kids have done dance. Uh, they've done tennis. My daughter was on the swim team last year, the Storm swim team. My daughter's in a play right now, the Pinocchio play. So yeah, we're just really, really big fans, and we're really there all the. Oh, my kids went to the child care center for their whole childhood, so we're just like why all the way.
Yeah, that's so great. And it's
Yeah,
it's a unique story. Everybody has a unique why story, but it's
yeah.
something we hear often that people are new parents with young children and they discover the why for that connection. Like we hear that a lot. And not only is it connection for the kids, but it really is for the parents and guardians as well. And like you
Yeah,
said, makes them feel like part of a community, which is what
yeah.
we're all about. So I
And I
love
have to
that. That's
add,
great.
I got to add about Camp Sargent because we've gone to Camp Sargent every year since our kids can go. And I asked my kids in the winter, what is your favorite part of summer? My 6-year-old says Camp Sargent.
Oh, I love that.
They cannot wait for camp. They want me to do pre and post camp and be the first to drop them off and the last to pick
Of
them up.
course. Yeah, of
So,
course.
that's going to be their childhood memory. And that just makes me
Right.
super happy.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Camp Sargent holds a very special place in my heart. I went as a child, just a couple weeks, and then that's how I started my Y career. Met my husband there, and then now one of my older sons works there. So Camp Sargent is very special to me, so I totally get it. I would love to spend my entire summer at Camp Sargent as well.
I'm so jealous of the
Yeah.
counselors when I drop the kids off.
I know. It is really, they kind of live their best life. So,
Mhm.
great. Well, thank you for sharing that. So, today we're going to talk a little bit about your young organization, OwlHive.
Mhm.
So, can you share with us what OwlHive is, where it's
Yes.
located, who it serves, all of that?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'll give you a little bit more of my background. I have 25 years of working with moms and families. I actually started as a massage therapist and I did fertility, pregnancy, and infant massage. And then I have a degree in psych where I focused on women's health. And then I became a nurse. And over the past 15 years, I've done lots of different things, inpatient, outpatient, high risk. I've worked with midwives for 5 years in a freestanding birth center and really done a lot of more public health related types of things, building programs to help improve the prenatal and postpartum experience for families. I have also done health tech. So just a lot of different kind of varied experience and mostly as an educator. And I'm really, really convinced that so many of the issues that parents deal with and even I'll say the word trauma during birth and afterwards could be prevented through prenatal support and education and prevention. And so that's something I've always really wanted to focus on. Envision myself kind of teaching all kinds of classes, but when it came down to it, what we're really, really facing right now as a real crisis is mental health during the perinatal period. So with OwlHive, I do education and consulting through the whole spectrum. So I also teach sexuality education. So with OwlHive, we can do everything from sexual education through menopause, which I'll give you the little inside scoop. OwlHive is kind of my secret way of saying birds and bees. The Owl Hive, and it's knowledge and community, because that's what I really believe will make the difference for birthing people and families. But what we're focusing on right now is addressing the crisis of perinatal mental health. So with perinatal mental health, that actually is people are more familiar with the term postpartum depression. And so perinatal actually peri means around, natal means birth. So perinatal means around the birth, which is conception all the way to a full year postpartum. And what we know is there's probably just as much anxiety as there is depression, and that more of the conditions start during pregnancy than in postpartum. And so at OwlHive, what we're trying to do is really address all of the barriers that are keeping folks with perinatal mental health conditions from getting adequate care. And right now, it's something like fewer than 5% of people with these conditions are getting adequate treatment. Just a few little things to help people understand why it's so important. Perinatal mental health is the number one cause of pregnancy-related death right now.
Wow.
So when you're taking into account pregnancy through a year postpartum, and then that includes suicide and overdose. So we really are in a crisis. Just for context, again, we've all heard about gestational diabetes or hypertension or preeclampsia. The rates of those conditions are about 8 to 9% of all people who are pregnant. Whereas our last stat in New Hampshire from last year was something like 28% of perinatal people had a mental health condition.
Wow.
So we're talking about almost a third of people, and yet we're barely talking about it. So, what I know to be some of the barriers is education, stigma, identification, navigating the healthcare system, and then finding adequately trained mental health providers who are trained in this area. So what we do at OwlHive is we take a comprehensive approach. So I offer classes for parents so that parents know what to look for, what to do if they see the symptoms in themselves or in their partners. Oftentimes it's a partner that will identify it. And also we know that dads get mental health conditions. 10% of dads or non-gestational parents, foster parents, grandparents will get a mental health condition. So the classes, we teach them what to look for and what they can do. We also address that kind of community stigma and identification by offering professional development for I say like family and like baby adjacent people. So like child care workers. We've worked with WIC staff, people like that, because those are the people that moms trust. And those are the people that know something's different about that mom, right? Because they see them over time. So we've got parent classes, we've got professional development, and then I do offer a 6 credit CEU class for maternal health and behavioral health professionals that need to keep up with continuing ed for their licenses.
Yeah.
And then the one last thing is I do consulting. So if there's an org that says, hey, we want to build a really great, comprehensive, strategic perinatal mental health offering, I can come in and kind of consult them on how to do that.
Yeah. Wow, that's a lot. And it sounds like a very specific niche, right? Or service that like you said, there's a need for it, but
Yes.
it's not something that necessarily has these overwhelming amount of resources. And,
Yeah.
we always say how the Y has like that community care model of we're not, um, experts in the medical field per se, but we do certainly help boost people's mental health and well-being in a, kind of like a third party way.
Yeah.
So it's very specific what you're doing. And I love that because it sounds like it's definitely needed in a very intentional, strategic way. So that's great.
Well, thank
Um,
you.
so I know that recently we partnered a little bit on an event. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I would love to. So kind of as I mentioned, a part of what I do is I really want to build those community connections because I think that places like the Y really are the secret. Like that is where we are going to identify and where we're going to be able to give people the right referrals. I don't think you have to be a clinician to do that. I think if you're a person that cares and knows how to work with people, that is a really good person to identify. So anyway, I do a lot of collaboration, and a lot of people around the area that I wanted to work with said, we do agree this is a problem, but we really want to connect to the community. We really want to know what do pregnant and postpartum moms and families really want. And so OwlHive kind of took the leap and brought together some community partners, the YMCA, the Department of Public Health, the Arlington Street Community Center, and the Smart Start Coalition for Early Childhood and Family Health. So we all came together and said, okay, let's just listen to the community. So the event that we did, and I will tell you, I think anybody who has ever met a pregnant person or somebody that's had a baby knows when you ask people about their birth stories, there's a lot, right? Because we don't get the opportunity to talk about them a lot. And so I said, we can't do this like a normal listening session. We need to give people the space and time to really feel like they can tell their stories. So what we did is we used a framework that public health has used. And so they've been doing a couple conversations like this around the city for different topics, but it's a very specific format that is inclusive. It invites people in. And so the framework works like this. We have several tables, however many we need, so that we have 6 to 8 participants per table. Every table has a trained facilitator and note taker. And then we have a few very, very specific questions to try to hear what people's experiences were. And so what we were looking at here is we wanted to know what are people's experiences with their prenatal care, prenatal education, and prenatal resources. What resources did they use? Why did they use them? Where did they get their information? What did they like or not like about their care? Because that's going to help us build programs. So we got all these people, and it's like I said, it's like a really inclusive event. It was 3 hours and it's lunch. So people came at 11, started getting their food, sitting, chatting, meeting people, really building trust with the people that were going to be asking them questions so that it didn't feel like they're being grilled. And so then after about an hour, we really set the stage. This is inclusive. Here are our agreements of engagement. We are here to hear you. Really trying to set the stage so that people felt safe and comfortable to be able to share with us because it's a very vulnerable situation. So we wanted them to really feel safe. Um, so then we have those questions and we engage in conversations with them and just kind of ask them. So we ask them, what was your experience like? Where did you get your sources of information? What did you do when you got conflicting information? And just kind of have them tell us their stories. That is interjected with some really fun little activities. So instead of just asking people, how old are you? We have a fun demographics game where we hold up a sign like, anybody born in the 60s, come stand here, in the 70s, and everyone's cheering for their decade, and it gets people, it brings you together. It's fun. It's a nice break. So we do a few activities like that. And then at the end, there's this, oh my gosh, beautiful activity called I See You, where you say to the person, I want you to see me as a person who is kind or whatever. They turn to you and say, I see you. And they turn to the next person and say, I want you to see me as. And it was all tears. I mean, it's such a heartwarming experience and a great way to end things. So after that, we did a raffle, and I have to tell you, Lynn, the raffle prizes were each prize, we had three prizes, one for like moms to take care of themselves, another one for like the first year of infancy, and another one for people with toddlers. Each of those three raffle prizes were like two piles of gifts. We worked with Lamprey, we worked with Waypoint, and we had some sponsors, and like they were really generous.
That's great.
And the moms so when they come in, they got a raffle ticket, they could put it in any bucket. Those moms were ecstatic. It was really fun. And we also worked with the New Leaders Council, which is like a leadership training program across the state. So we
Mhm.
had all these young people who were training to be leaders, and they got to lead the conversation and kind of understand what's going on with maternal health.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. It was really, really great.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great. And that was at our Merrimack branch.
that was at the Merrimack branch.
Yeah, and Brittany Martin was, I know she was a huge piece of putting all of this together. And I know
Oh
she
yeah.
was very excited about it as well. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm glad
I would
that we were able to make it happen.
It was amazing. It was a perfect space. Brittany like made it happen. The other really amazing thing is, I do a lot of advocacy work, and one of my favorite mottos is the revolution will have childcare. And those of us in this group, and I didn't share this, but I'll share in a minute. When we're building a program for parents and families in our community, we have three baselines, that foundational pieces: food, childcare, and translation. And we had all of that. So I didn't mention that we had folks translating in Spanish and Portuguese. And the Y very generously, the Kid Stop is not open during the time we had it. They brought in staff. They let us use the Kid Stop because we know pregnant and postpartum people have kids.
Mhm.
And so they were able to feel like their kids were really safe and well cared for and taken care of so that they could relax and engage in the conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And those are barriers, right? Like you just said, and I'll add transportation too. We know that this is a barrier for people to feel included and welcome to certain areas. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we were very happy to be able to not only host you, but be engaged as well. Because we obviously serve a lot of prenatal and people that have
Yes.
kids a lot. So
Yeah,
we definitely want to
yeah.
be a part of that conversation. And then I think we also have some resources, and I think it might be through the
Smart Start?
yes, Smart Start. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have those resources they're right by our Kid Stop area,
Yes.
each of the branches. So I think
Yeah.
it's really important for us to have those available, like you said, if
Yeah.
people don't know where to go.
Yeah, it's great. And we had people do surveys at the end of the conversation, and also we got the notes from each of the tables from the note takers, and something we saw almost every single survey and certainly at every table was people said, I loved this. We need more things like this. I need more opportunities to meet other pregnant and postpartum new parents. I want to have more time to talk about this and have people listen. So, the ultimate goal for us was to get the data. What do people want? So we can take
Mhm.
it back to these orgs so we can build programs at the Y, at Arlington Street, public health. That was the impetus for this. But what it really ended up being was an event that supported the community, that they felt like it was a day for them. They felt like they got a lot. And so because of that, I'm already starting to build programs at other places because people said they love this. We know that. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's good. And you start with the data, right? You got to ask the community what they want for programs and
Yep.
offerings before you start running those. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so what next for you? What
What's
happens next and what's coming up that's exciting?
Yeah, yeah. So I would be remiss not to share that there is a new amazing coalition in New Hampshire through Dartmouth, and they have received a grant, a federal grant, to support maternal health over the next 5 years. Actually, it's a $5 million grant. So we're going to see a lot of things happening around the state. They're building 13 coalitions around the state so that the maternal health programs we're building are really in alignment with what that community needs, right? Like, so I talked to some people in Littleton, and what people in Littleton need is different than what we need in Nashua. But we're all like sharing ideas. So through that, we have a lot of programs that OwlHive is going to be a part of building. One of the things is we're going to be taking all those resources you talked about and translating them on video so that people who speak other languages and maybe don't read in their language will still have access to the resources. There are another project, there's a few postpartum groups around town. We are going to try to expand that so that we have one that is a Spanish speaking group and one that I will do that hopefully that is perinatal mental health specific. There's lots of other education series planned. And it's also about working with a lot of the community members to be building things collaboratively. So I'll be talking to Brittany and see from the surveys, what does the Y want to do? You know, what do we want to build there? But I do also have parent classes that I teach virtually. So those happen once a month and people can register on my website. At OwlHive, I have a really, really strong commitment to health equity. I've been working on birth equity for Black moms and babies for 15 years. So it's really important to me. Accessibility, folks who are in vulnerable communities. I really believe that every person should have access to high quality, evidence-based prenatal education. So what I do, and it's an interesting model, I have a price for my class. And then I have different levels. So if you can pay this much, if you can pay this much, if you can pay this much, you don't have to get a call, you don't have to call me, you don't have to say why you need help. And there's a free option. So, it's a good faith, it's a good faith testament. And I am hoping that people will, be respectful and responsible. But it's a way that I think it's a new way that we can say, let's make sure everybody's inclusive and let's show how we're committed to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have those parent classes once a month. They're virtual. It's a 2-hour class at night, and people can sign up for that on my website, which is owlhivehealth.com.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for including that too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And check it out. There's a lot of more background stats and a lot about my personal background, the goals, and obviously the different services.
Yeah, that's great. And it's such impactful work that you're doing. So thank you for that. So when do you sleep?
I know. I have to say I have a really, really great husband who is probably the best dad I've ever met. And I meet a lot of dads and talk to a lot of moms. And this is the family effort. Everything I do would not be possible without him because my kids are 12, 10, and 6.
Yeah.
So yeah, they still have a lot of needs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's about time management, and I really have learned how to set boundaries and do self-care because I'm not interested in getting burned out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, those really, really important things to keep in mind for sure. So
Which is why we go to the Y.
yeah.
Yeah, when my husband
Exactly.
starts getting grumpy, I'm like, "Would you just go to the Y tonight?"
Yeah. Go work out. You feel a
Yes, and
lot
he comes
better.
back feeling, even the kids are like, "I think Dad should go. He's grumpy today." So
Oh, that's so funny. Well, this has been great. I always say this, or my listeners are probably sick of hearing it, but I always learn something new, and I definitely learned a lot from you today. Not just about your organization, but the efforts that you're trying to make and the impact that you're making. And it's just great. It's very important, and I'm glad that you're doing it. So,
thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
I would say just keep watching because there is a lot coming for pregnancy and postpartum in the Nashua area. So, I would encourage people to keep their ears out.
Yes, absolutely. Great. Well, thank you, Paige, for joining us. And to my listeners, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Lynn.
You can download Community Catalyst on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Castbox, and Spotify.